Awesome, Sean. Um, I mean, you go way back, bud. We go back. What is it now? 6, 7 years?
Yeah, nearly six. It's crazy.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a few things today and get to know you a little bit.
Sure.
Learn about your story. I'll tell you a little bit about my first impressions of you when I first met you, and you know, kind of where we went from there in the relationship, how it's grown, how it's flourished. And Yeah, let's start off. Let's go back to the start. Let's learn all about you, like 60 to 90 seconds now. Tell me a little bit about your background, your history, the man
Sure.
behind the camera right now.
Right. Yeah, a little bit about me. Grew up northern suburbs of Chicago, raised by a single mother. My mom is my everything, right? This is a woman that had three types of cancers, spinal fusion surgery, double hip replacement surgery, bunion surgery, kind of at 4:30 in the morning, 6:30 at night. The woman is my absolute hero and also a reminder for me of what hard work looks like every single day. Pretty decent athlete coming up, right? All conference baseball player, all star or all state football player. Whatever I do in college, I knew I was gonna play football. Blessed to go play football at the University of Kansas, graduate degree in sports management, modern and business. From there, wanted to continue to work in sports, right? So ended up parlaying that into a 7-year career in scouting and player development in the NFL with the Chicago Bears. And just developing that sports minded mentality and just that competitive industry. And for me, coming into this, I wasn't really sure what to expect, right? I don't know if you want me to touch on that now, but uh,
Yeah. Go with the flow, man.
yeah, I mean, like for me, yeah, I mean, my MBA suggested go work in finance, right? Go work in wealth management, go work in anything, other than sales or marketing, right? But kind of coming into this industry, one of the things that probably bothered me the most about anything is that I wasn't good at it. And it drove me absolutely crazy. I come from intelligent parents. School wasn't overly complicated for me. When it comes to sports, you kind of put a ball in my hand. I've always known what to do with it. And this is one of the first things I really struggle with. And at the ripe age of 33, I had no idea how much I needed that at that point in my life. And when I tell people that I grew more in my first year in this industry than I did in 7 years working in football, that's not an understatement. And it's not something I say lightly because football is my heart. Like it gave me everything. It taught me teamwork, camaraderie, self-discipline, competitiveness, putting the team first. And I found all those things in this industry. And when I kind of really fully locked in and bought into everything that was being taught to me, it was something that, I can't imagine doing anything else. And, I'm super appreciative that this opportunity kind of almost found me. And, I feel like when I tell people, I feel like my life kind of started at 33, which is pretty crazy to say. So,
Yeah, I started in the business at 30 years old as well. So I can definitely resonate with you there.
yeah.
First impressions when I first met you, I always tell this little story how I have I'm a very good read of someone. I can
Yeah.
tell people pretty much straight away within the first few minutes or first few hours of getting to know them. And
Right.
I remember just sitting there in my office in Chicago, super hot day. I remember thinking like, I'm glad I'm not in the field anymore. Felt sorry for the guys a little bit. It was steaming out there, 100
Yeah.
degrees or whatever. And I remember looking across to my left and seeing you out in the lobby, just sitting there, leaning over, red face,
Yeah.
puffy, looking gassed out. And
Yeah.
I remember just turning to Michael Wang and being like, "That guy's not going to come back tomorrow. That guy's done." And
Yeah.
that's me prejudging, but that definitely wasn't the case.
Right.
Like we zoom forward, 5, 6 years later now, you consistently run $1 million business. And what I say mean by $1 million business, your business generates over $1 million a year,
Yeah.
which generates you personally over $300,000 a year, which is a good life to lead. Obviously, learning how to become a consultant now and grow into that. But what would you say is the definition of being competitive?
I think it's kind of evolved over time.
Yeah.
I think that I always say that was kind of my superpower was my competitiveness, right? I'm a sore winner and I'm a sore loser. Like I can't even play video games with people. It's kind of messed up. I feel like it's kind of changed. And I feel like competitive was one of the reasons, I rang the bell literally 94 days in a row outside in the streets of Chicago. And I feel like it wasn't necessarily because I was more charismatic than somebody or because, maybe my overturns were better. I just kind of refused to lose. And I feel like in this business, it's kind of ebbs and flows. It's like a pendulum, right? I remember Justin Cobb speaking about how, when it's going as good, it's never as good as it seems. When it's going as bad, it's never as bad as it seems. And I think you just gotta kind of learn how to ride the emotional wave and you just have to refuse to lose. And when things aren't going well, I think about 6 weeks ago, I got rid of a bunch of people from my office that weren't adding a lot of value. They could do sales, but they weren't good people with the culture. And we took a step back. And I think just kind of whenever I feel like I'm backed into a corner, whether that's in this industry or whether that's in life, I kind of go into survival mode. That's going back to the field. That's going been networking even harder than usual. That's making sure I'm on every single call. That's spending more time with my guys. I go into that crew manager mode. And when I say I feel like it's evolved, I feel like being competitive to me means just learning to compete with yourself, right? Learning to compete with yourself and trying to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday and better tomorrow than I was today. And, you don't
Yeah.
have to be classically competitive like that, but I do feel like you have to learn how to continue to evolve.
Yeah, that definitely is the definition of being competitive, doing whatever it takes to win. And what I like by that is like sometimes you take a step back,
Yeah.
take a ginormous step forwards, but some people aren't humble and take a step backwards to take a giant step forwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel you've developed as a leader over the years
Yeah.
to get to where you're at to right now? Right now, how do you feel you've developed like Sean Hayes, the leader, Sean Hayes, the manager, Sean Hayes, the entrepreneur? Like you're
Starting as a leader, right? I think I was always someone that worked hard. You spoke on that. I definitely seemed overwhelmed than I was. And I think everyone develops at their own rate. And I always ask Michael, like, why did you keep me around for 4 weeks when I wasn't producing sales and I wasn't doing this? He's like, you always worked hard. You always worked hard. So I think when I became a leader, I was kind of under the misconception, if you will, of everyone needed to work as hard as me. You needed to want it as bad as I do. And like when people weren't doing that, I think I got frustrated. And, I think what I came to learn as real leadership is kind of meeting people where they're at. It's as you know, in Chicago, especially, it's a very diverse city, right? We have people like myself that have master's degrees, and we have people that barely finished high school from the west side of Chicago. And my overarching narrative with anyone that comes in my business now is, my job is never to change you. My job is simply to help you become the best version of you. And I feel like that's resonated with people, and I'm able to kind of share my story. And I think even as a manager, probably push people a little bit too hard. If I'm being honest with you, I probably ground people down. You got to make sure you hit goals at all costs and all this other stuff. And I focus more on numbers than the people. And now my office, my philosophy is people first. I just believe we speak with people, we work with people, we interact with people, but we always need to remember we are people. And life happens, as has happened to me, as it's happened to you, and so many other people in this industry. And I think it's about meeting people where they're at, right? And just helping them become a better version of themselves. And rather than kind of just overbearing and instilling fear, leading from a place of understanding and leading from a place of just being a human being. And I feel like that's really resonated, and that's why things are back on the uptick with us again. And as an entrepreneur, just like I said, just meeting people where they're at and just always continue to have a conversation. I heard early on, like, everything should be a conversation. I'm either going to convince you why my viewpoint is better, or you're going to convince me why yours is. I feel like I can learn something from everybody. And I
yeah.
think I was very hard-headed in that you needed to meet my standard. And now it's more about like, let's have a dialogue, let's come to a consensus. And I find it definitely resonates with people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And sometimes I talk I'm talking to a bunch of leaders all the time, and they always ask me this question, and they're like, "What do you think makes a great leader?" And I'm gonna put that on you now. Now, like, what do you think makes not the perfect leader, but someone that can lead an effective team, someone that can manage, an office, someone that can manage potentially an organization. What do you feel like makes a tremendous leader?
I feel like it's relatability, right? I feel like it's relatability. It's understanding that, hey, I've been where you've been, and I've felt the way that you felt. And in your first few days, it's okay to not know if this is for you, because that's how I felt as well. And I think at every phase of your program, there's always going to be having doubts, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing. And in my experience, one of the keys to really having success in this business is, there's going to be times where you bend, but you can never break, right? And I think you have to be strong. And I think the conviction that I have speaking to my team every day, I pride myself on never asking anyone to do something that I haven't done myself. And, I find it's a delicate balance, because I don't want to be perceived as a hypocrite. I don't want to be looked at as like, well, you're saying one thing and doing another. And, I think being able to have those experiences and relate to the feelings, good or bad, to be honest with you, shows vulnerability. And, I think real strength comes from vulnerability. And, just like when we sign people up in the field, right, you wouldn't get to know about them, you share things about you. I think being a leader means like, you can't be afraid to be vulnerable. Matt, you and I have obviously had a lot of conversations as well about the human aspect that we encounter in life as well. And I felt nothing but closeness from you from it. And that's why I feel we have such a strong relationship, is because we're not afraid to be vulnerable with each other. It's like, hey, I've struggled with this too. I've gone through this as well. And I think there's a lot of power in that narrative of saying, like, I've felt the exact same way you have, as opposed to like, don't feel that way, get your mind locked in, all this other stuff, which is maybe kind of the narrative I used to have. And And now it's kind of more about, not being afraid to be vulnerable and let them know like, hey, I'm just like you. I just have a little bit more experience, right? I just have, a little bit more under my belt. And I think that relatability is one of the things I love most about this business because every single person, from yourself on down, like we all started in the same spot. We all were the ones carrying a notebook at team night. We were all the ones that networking and doing all these things and standing in atmosphere, writing down announcements. And, if you do it right, you're the person running it. And that's exciting, but you never kind of forget where you came from. And,
Yeah.
to me, that's really what it means to be a strong leader.
Absolutely. Like, and then one of your points there was just mental health. I think it's a
Yeah.
huge like taboo subject that men don't want to talk about, but we are vulnerable. We are human. What do you feel? What do you do to when you're having like a bit of a tough time? What do you do to, work on your mental health?
Yeah. I'm really big into exercise now. I feel like that's so huge. Being healthier, I find when I eat healthier, when I'm exercising regularly, maybe the things that would stress me out or, the little kind of death by a thousand cuts, right? Maybe are a little more manageable. I'm able to take a step back. I'm able to, create endorphins, do things healthy. And, there was a time where maybe I would seek the wrong outlets for those kind of things, right? More of an instant gratification to kind of, for lack of a better term, putting a band-aid on a broken bone, right? And, I just understand like real change comes from within. And if I want to become the best version of myself, not only for me, but for my people, like I need to be the healthiest version of myself. That means eating healthy in the morning. That means getting more sleep at night. Sleep is critical, right?
Hmm.
A situation that might, running an office and an organization, like there's a million things. And sometimes it's like whack-a-mole, right? Like one problem pops up, you hit it, and then two more pop up. And I think if you're not in the right mental space to be able to compartmentalize and deal with one issue at a time, it can be overwhelming. And as we see from so many people, and that's understandable, but I always want to kind of put myself in the right mental state. That means every morning I work out before I come into the office. I'm up at 5 a.m.
Nice.
every single day, working out, getting it out. I have more energy in the office. I'm more awake. I'm more excited. And then I can also stay in the office longer as well, right? I don't need to go back and feel like I need to work out. I can be here as long as I do, doing more prelims, more second rounds, having more conversations at nighttime, and kind of prioritizing that every single day to start my day on a positive note has been really big. And just speaking of, and this may sound cheesy, but like speaking to my family more, making a priority to call my brother and to call my mother consistently. And, obviously running an office, you can have a very busy schedule, as you know, with an organization. And I think sometimes, those things kind of get swept under, not intentionally, but inadvertently. And I think speaking to the people that love you and feeling that love and reciprocating it back and taking care of yourself, I think is really contributes to coming in with a positive mental mindset every single day.
Let's go a little deep.
Okay.
Um,
Ready.
what do you think if you could go back to that guy sitting on the couch, puffing and puffing, like, what is there anything you feel you would have done differently during that time? Like I always say, people ask me that question as well, and I'm like, I wouldn't do anything differently because I wouldn't have been in the situation I am right now. But if you had the knowledge you have, like, how would you approach things? Would you approach them any differently?
I, Similarly to yourself, I do feel like everything has kind of gotten me to this point. I believe that the good experiences along with the bad ones kind of shape who we are and get us to this point. I'm a big proponent of everything happens for a reason. I will say, I feel like I could have been a little bit more patient with myself to an extent. I think being the competitor that I am, all I knew coming for sports was winning and losing, right? I think it's perspective. I mean, I think, in basketball, if you shoot 30% from the field, you're a terrible shooter. But the exact same percentage in baseball, if you hit 300, you're in the Hall of Fame. Why? Because we understand that you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed in that sport. And it's the same thing in this business. And I remember when I first started, it was like I wanted to sign everybody up. I wanted everybody to stop me. And that's just not what we do. And I think a lot of the growth came from that. And I feel like, sure, our job is to find the yeses, but it's also to kind of learn how to absorb the no's, right? And I think maybe kind of putting that into perspective a little bit sooner rather than feeling discouraged and living and dying in the field and understand that, hey, like I didn't have any experience in this. That's why I started entry level,
Yeah.
But one thing about me, and then going back to the confidence and the competitiveness in my entire life, when every time I've ever been thrown at the bottom of a barrel, I found my way to the top. And I certainly look forward to being able to continue to build on that in this industry. And, I think just being patient with myself and maybe just still, yeah, just maybe networking a little bit sooner as well. I think I was somebody that I wanted to high roll and I wanted to make money, and I worked really hard. And if I'm being, and I don't know, I don't want to swear on this, but I think the last thing I want to do is get on the phone with someone across the country talking about losing my attitude, right? Like I just didn't want to do it. But when I realized networking made my entire program easier as opposed to adding to it, it really started to click. And I enjoy it very much now. I enjoy speaking to people and having people speak to me and kind of paying forward the information that I was given. And I think that's an essential part of our business. So doing things differently, maybe being a little bit less hard on myself initially, but I think that competitiveness ultimately is what allowed me to win. It definitely stages after that as well.
I love that. That's some great information. Like, let's finish things off. Let's talk about goals.
Yeah,
I got three here for you. I got 2025. So what do we got now? 6 months left in the year.
yeah.
Then I got 2026, and then I got 2030. So let's start off with 2025. Where does Sean Hayes want to be? We're sitting there New Year's Eve, 2025,
Yeah.
maybe in Miami visiting me.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a party in my, you're welcome to go. I'm going to have a party New Year's Eve in Miami. Feel free to come along.
You don't have to ask.
Where are you going to be? What's the plan? Like, where is your business going to sit at right now? Obviously, you're generating the revenue. That's great.
Right.
But for you to sit there and be thinking that year was a good year. What do you want to achieve in the next 6 months? It could be materialistic things. It could
Right.
be, things you want
Yeah.
to do for your family. It could be like
Yeah.
saving money.
This might not be the answer you're looking for because I feel like in the past, I have very much set those goals. And, things don't always go according to plan. My goal genuinely is to promote at least two more people to management between now and then, between now and the end of that minimum.
Yeah.
My goal is to have a real organization, profitable outside deals that are making money and that are winning as well. My goal is to be the best possible version of myself and to lead from the front with everything that I do. And that means habits, that means mentality, that means being an infallible example. I was super fortunate to be in Michael Wang's office and I saw what that example looked like. And, I do strive to be that example. And I want to be at a place where my energy and my excitement is able to permeate others. Like you said, the results have been there, but I feel like what's different about this run that I'm undertaking about to go on in a serious way between now and your party in Miami is that I'm doing things the right way. And I'm doing things from a development standpoint, and I'm doing things from a place where I'm building greed on leadership. And like you tell me you want to get promoted, you got to prove to me why you want to. I think in the past I've shown I've pushed people through the leadership and to help other people and things like that. Everything has to be earned. And I want to run an organization. I want people to come into this building in Chicago and say this is what an organization is supposed to look like. And that's really the only goal that I have is to become the best version of me between now and that time. In the past, I've kind of pigeonholed myself and going back to that competitiveness. Maybe if it hadn't happened, it kind of could discourage me. And minimum two assistant managers between now and then, minimum, and just be an incredible example. And I want people to come into Chicago and see this is what this is how it's supposed to be done properly.
That's awesome. Get on a roll, man. Get that momentum going, then
Yeah,
ride the wave.
it's coming.
Um, well, once you get that wave, and a lot of people don't even get it sometimes, when you get there, you stay on it and
Yeah,
you just ride that wave. I did it in Europe once for like 3, 4 years. I didn't move from number one. I
right.
promoted out like 5 or 6 big offices and went on a big run there. It's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Okay, 2026, next year.
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with
Let's
you.
think big. Let's talk big, act big, be big.
If I'm not a consultant by 2026, you have to come and prod me out of here because that is 100% the goal. I have no qualms saying that. I want to be conservative. Naturally, the competitor in me wants to say, "Hey, let's get it done by in 6 months." Like I want to be realistic. I want to focus on small goals to get to big goals, but I 100%, if 2026 comes by, I'm not a consultant, I've done something wrong. It has to be the case. And I don't want to stop there. I watched Chris McKeedy's go from regional to vice president in a very short amount of time. I'm confident with what we're building, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to take this thing to the next level. And, the goal is consultancy. That has to be anyone worth their salt's goal when they start in this industry. And I want to do that. I want to have, what that will come with that is obviously multiple outside deals and not just outside deals that are cranking, right? I want people to be all in the bulletin. I want us to all be growing together. I want it to be infallible. And I felt like I had a lot of that connectivity and that momentum when I was a leader. I had a great team. I had a team that everyone wanted to be a part of. And, I want to establish that only from an ownership and a consultancy perspective. I want to be a consultancy crew that everyone wants to be a part of. And I want to do it the right way. And I want to be building to last. And I want to continue to build on myself. And then I want to have my outside deals, promote outside deals, and build a real organization. Because that's, as you said, I can only imagine that's when the fun begins. And it's a bigger scale and a bigger playing field and bigger stakes, but I welcome it and I look forward to it.
That's awesome. 2030. I know it seems like a long way away, 5 years from now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like anything's possible from a business perspective, but I guess from a personal perspective, I want to have a family. And I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to have an amazing life, and I want my kids to grow up in an environment where they want for nothing. It wasn't always easy for me growing up. It definitely built character, but I don't want my kids to have to pay for college like I did. I don't want my kids to have to struggle like I did for certain things. I want my kids to grow up in an environment where they're happy and they're healthy and they feel like they can do anything in this world because that's the opportunity I want to give them. And Obviously I can talk about the goals that I would have here. Obviously the goal 100% would be national consultant between now and 2030. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think what comes along with that is the personal happiness that I look forward to being able to explore and enjoy as well.
I think you can be a super VP by that point.
I'm with that. I'm
Why
with
not,
that.
man? You know what,
Yep.
Sean, like it's always a pleasure talking to you, buddy. I'm probably going to see you in the next couple of weeks.
Can't wait.
Down there and visit. But thanks to you, thanks for chatting to me today.
My
And
pleasure.
you have an amazing day, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you. Take care.
Cheers.